Gathering online, what up? Thanks for joining us today. We're honored that you would spend this time with us to be encouraged, built up in your faith, walk with the Lord. We're thankful that you would do this with us, and we're deeply honored, so we want you to know that. This week, we did things a little bit differently. We met at a different location. The location and the church that we normally meet in decided to do a women's conference, and a lot of the people who go to the gathering, women who go to the gathering, went to this conference, and they were blessed, encouraged, full of faith. But for the rest of us, mostly men, some women, went to a new location, a smaller location, and it was an amazing time. It was intimate. It was a little bit more Bible study feel, but we wanted to let you in on this sermon. It was a little bit different, but it was the end of, or the conclusion of our series entitled Footsteps of Faith. And if you're just now watching this, you're just now stumbling upon Footsteps of Faith, make sure to go watch all the other sermons. I believe they're going to encourage you. This series is going to build you up in your faith as we look at the heroes of the faith in Hebrews chapter 11. But we're going to be moving on. We're going to be moving out of this series probably to something new soon. Stay tuned. But if you're in Napa, we hope to see your face in the place. Meet me at 3305 Linda Vista in the house of the Lord. You can watch on YouTube. That's great, but there's something special about being in the room. And I think some things aren't just taught, they're caught. And so come into the house of the Lord. I believe you're going to be filled with faith. If you're somewhere else and you can't be with us, that's okay. Meet me on Gathering Online right here on YouTube. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all those goodies. Make sure to message us. I hope you know that we're praying for you. And so we would love to hear your comments, your thoughts, what speaks to you, and how we can be praying for you specifically. We got a group of people who we send the prayer requests to if you're okay with it. And we're praying for you, believing that God's going to move in your life. And so we want you to know that. And so we love you guys. I hope to see you soon. Gathering Online. I love you. Peace. A few weeks ago, I heard this phrase, and it really impacted me. It sounded something like this: if you want to impress somebody, share your victories. If you want to connect with somebody, share your insecurities. And it connected with me. I felt that. I was like, man, maybe I need to start telling people more about how I struggle too, you know? And some pastors out here talking about how our lives are perfect. Let me tell you, our lives are not perfect. We are just as messed up, if not more messed up than you. Okay, so don't be worried to come to us and tell us your problems. We got our own, and we can relate whether we tell you or not. And so, but I was hearing this, and I was thinking about it, and I was thinking that Hebrews chapter 11 is inherently the Instagram highlight reel of the Bible. It's talking about all the victories, about all the wins for all the youngins, all the W's, and so we talk about how they win and how they did these crazy things full of faith. Yet we don't see their losses, their let's just say their shortcomings in Hebrews chapter 11. And so I wanted to look first, before we looked at Gideon's faith, I wanted to look at Gideon's fear. And so last week we talked about Gideon's fear, how Gideon was a man who would be used mightily, full of faith. He would be used with power, and God's going to do something great with him. But before he did something great, he was struggling. And I came to tell you, if you're struggling today, God can still use you for great things. God can still use you, despite where you're at. He's found in a cave, shaking in his boots, quivering. I said to Keith last week, palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. He was in there not knowing what to do, scared. But God said, that's okay, I know where you're at, but I see where you can be. And God sees past where you are, where you can be, because with him, you can be all things. And so we see him scared, and God speaks to him. He says to Gideon, go in the strength that you have. You don't need more strength. You just need to go with what you got. See, I think some of us in this Christian life, we try to want more, and that's good. I think we want to have more faith, and we want to have more gifting, and we want to have more insight and more wisdom. I think that's great. Go for it. But for Gideon, God said, no, you need to go with what you have. And some of us are waiting for more when we just need to go with what we got. And so God says to him, go with the strength that you have. He's quaking in his boots, but God tells him to still go, which also tells me that you can go and still be fearful. Sometimes fear is not the opposite of faith. Sometimes fear is the gateway or the door to have faith. You're scared, but you're going anyways. That's called faith. And so Gideon is scared. He's slowly moving, maybe not as fast as we would want him to go, but he's moving. And progress is what God's looking for. God's not looking for perfection. He is looking for progression. And so God is taking him out of the cave. Now Gideon is stepping out of the cave, but God is trying to now get the cave out of him. You see, like the Israelites, they're in Egypt, they're enslaved. They've been in Egypt for 400 years, but God takes them out in a day, but it takes them 40 years to get Egypt out of them. They can be changed in a moment, but sometimes the deeper things take a long time. And so Gideon has come out of the cave, but now God's trying to get the cave out of Gideon. And this is fun. I like this. I wrote this down. Maybe it'll encourage you. That Gideon was in the cave sifting. And now he's coming out of the cave, but he's not sifting. God is. And God is sifting Gideon. Sifting is where you're, might I say, creating friction, and there is wheat, and when you create the friction, the garbage is light, so it stays on the top, and the heavy stuff falls down to the bottom. He was sifting, but now God is sifting. God is working in his life. God is trying to get rid of some thought patterns. He's trying to get rid of some mindsets. Though he stepped out of the cave, he's trying to get the stuff out of Gideon, and it looks like friction, because sometimes sifting looks like friction. And sometimes when God's trying to do something amazing in your life, it feels like friction. But what he's really trying to do is he's trying to get rid of the garbage. He's trying to get rid of the stuff that you don't need, the stuff that's trash. And so he's doing this. It feels like friction. And if you feel like you're in friction today, if you feel like you're in conflict, if you feel like you're in a season of stress, maybe, just maybe, it's not that you're getting set back. Maybe it's actually a set up. And maybe God is just trying to work some things out in your life so you can be who he's called you to be. And so this is where we pick up in Judges chapter 7. If you got a Bible, turn with me. Judges chapter 7. I know we're in a small group, but if you're there, say yeah. Yeah. All right. Judges chapter 7. This is what it says. Then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people who were with him, rose early and encamped beside the spring of Harod. And the camp of Midian was north of them, by the hill of Moriah in the valley. So what God has called this man Gideon to do is Gideon is going to be the leader of an army to take out a group of people called the Midianites. And he's been scared. He doesn't feel like he measures up. Maybe you don't feel like you measure up. Maybe what God's called you to do, you feel like, you know what, I just don't know if I got what it takes. I don't know if I got the willpower, the strength. But God says, I'm going to be with you. And so he's scared, but now he's come out of the cave and he's getting ready. He's preparing. He's got the people, he's got the army, and now verse 1, he's encamped next to the Midianites. The Midianites are a little bit north down in a valley. And I just imagine Gideon is at this point, he's scared, but he's trying to, okay, I'm going to do what the Lord says. Okay, I'm going to do it. And so he's mustering up the faith. He's mustering up the strength. And so he goes to the people. He's like, okay, guys, okay, we about to do this thing. We about to do it. He's like, he's shaking. Okay, guys, we got this. And it's going to be great. Don't worry. We're going to make it, Lord on 3, the Lord's got us on 3. 1, 2, 3, the Lord's got us. And he's trying to get him excited, trying to hype him up, But then what's funny, the Lord comes to him. And the Lord comes to him like this in verse 2. Look at what it says. The Lord said to Gideon, the people with you, they're too many for me to give the Midianites into their hand, lest Israel boast over me, saying, my own hand has saved me. In other words, God says to him, I know you're trying to hype them up. I know you're trying to get them all ready, but the people who you're trying to hype up, it ain't going to work like this. This is too many. And the reason it's too many is because if you guys win, you'll think that you won. And I don't want you to think that you win. I don't want you to think that you win your battles. I don't want you to think that you beat your victories or you beat your enemy. By the way, the Midianites are a picture of sin. They're the picture of what comes against you and what you're called to do. You feel like you're called to step out. You feel like you're called, but sin comes, and sin comes against you. And God doesn't want you to feel like you beat your enemy. So God says, no, this ain't how we're going to do it. We're going to take less. I'm gonna sift you, and I'm gonna sift some of the people that's in your army. So he says, this is way too many, way too many. So verse 3, now therefore proclaimed in the ear of the people, saying, whoever is fearful and trembling, let him return home and hurry away from Mount Gilead. Then 22,000 of people returned, and 10,000 remained. So God says to Gideon, too big. Ask him who's scared. If they're scared, send them home. Because not only is faith courageous, faith is contagious, so is fear. And God's like, I don't want any scared people here. I don't want any fearful people here. I want people full of faith. You got to connect yourself with people full of faith. Get around people full of faith. If you want to look like a faithful person, you want to look strong, you want to be a man of God, get around men of God, because who you're around, you look like. That's another sermon. But he says, get rid of the people who are scared and get people who are full of faith. And so he sends them home. He sends them home. This is cool to me. He sends them home willingly. He does it. Okay. I guess 10,000 will do, Lord. 10,000 will do, I guess. Verse 4. And the Lord said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Take them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. And anyone of whom I say to you, this is the one shall go with you. And anyone who I say to you, this one shall not go with you, shall not go with you. So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, everyone who laps the water with his tongue, just dunks his face in the water and starts drinking the water, then set him home. Likewise, everyone who kneels down to drink, and the number of those who lapped put their heads in the mouth, or put their hands to their mouth, was 300 men. But all the rest of the people knelt down to drink water. So God is sifting Gideon, and he says, now when you go to the water, if people just dunk their head in the water and drink, then tell them, go home. But if they probably should go home, that's super weird. You're probably a serial killer if you do that. But if they grab water and drink it out their hands, then keep them. Gideon was scared at the beginning. Gideon didn't feel like he was enough at the beginning. Gideon felt, let's say, unqualified before. How much more now? What do you do when you feel like God has called you to something? You feel unqualified. You feel like you don't got what it takes. You feel like you don't got the finances. You feel like you don't got the strength, the wisdom, the courage. And then God starts to take things away from you. Makes it even harder. Exactly, yeah. Like what do you do when you're like, okay, Lord, I'll do it. Okay, and you finally get the courage. And as soon as you get the courage and you take one step of faith, he goes, perfect, let's cut some people out your life. Like, what do you do? What do you do when you're like, okay, I got the strength. Okay, I'm a go start the business that God told me to start. And then all of a sudden, tax season comes, and you get a thing in the mail that says, you owe $10,000 to the government, and you're like, what am I supposed? I was scared before, and I took a step of faith. And as soon as I take a step of faith, now it feels like I'm taking a step backwards. What do you do when you try to move forward in God? It feels like God's moving you backwards. What do you do when you feel like you're trying to get the courage and you're trying to go even though you know you don't got what it takes, but it feels like God's taking more and more from you? It's a scary place to be. It's a place where probably some of us are in today, feeling like we don't have what it takes, but we just feel like situation after situation, season after season, people are leaving and they're firing me, and I owe money now, and I this person left me and they talked bad about me, and I lost, my car got crashed, or I don't even know if that makes any sense, but my car got in a crash, and like everything in my life is just falling apart. What do you do? What does Gideon do? I don't know. I'm actually asking the question. Like, what do you do? What do you do in a season like that? Gideon's just kind of scratching his head, a little scared. But you can either see it, again, as a setback, or you can see it as a setup. Because you see, sometimes the things that God does in your life, it feels like subtraction, but it's actually addition. And some things God takes out of your life is for your benefit. Matter of fact, I wrote it like this: faith knows that if God is taking away, it's because I didn't need it, it wasn't good for me, or God has something better for me. Either it wasn't good for me, I don't need it, or God has something better for me. Every time the Lord takes, He's always giving you something else. If He's taking something from you, He's trying to give you peace. And if He's taking something from you, He's trying to give you joy. And if He's taking something from you, it might feel like subtraction, but really it's addition. And the question is, how do you see it? You have the choice to decide what your perspective will be, because you can look at it as a season of loss, or you can look at it as preparation for a victory. That's Gideon. If you feel like if things are being taken from you, if you feel like you're in a season of subtraction, I just came to tell you, get ready for a victory, because God's trying to get you to where you need to be. And God doesn't mess around with time. I found that out. I'll drag my feet, and the Lord's just trying to get to it. Like He's just trying to. I'm like a shotgun. He's like a sniper. He's like, no, we ain't messing around, and just goes straight to it. And sometimes the Lord will just start taking things out your life because He knows that it ain't good for you, and He wants to get you somewhere. Yeah. And so I just came to tell you, if you feel like you're in a season of subtraction, don't see it as a season of subtraction. See it as preparation for a victory. And so Gideon is scared. We don't see what he's thinking, but obviously he's scared. And we're going to see this in a second. There's 300 left. This is what it says in verse 7. And the Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men who lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hand. And let all the others go, every man to his home. Verse 8. So the people took provision in their hands with their trumpets, and he sent all the rest of Israel, the Israel men, to his tent, but retained the 300 men. So God says to him, with the 300, we're about to see a victory, but say bye to all the others. And he sends the others to the tent. It's easier said than done. But maybe God sifted this group tonight just because it's for you. I don't know. I was praying the Lord would do that He was sifting this group because He needed you to hear this. But maybe today you need to pull a Gideon and you need to say bye to all the things that God's taken away in your life. It says He sends them home. So many of us, I think, in our life, the reason that we don't move forward is not because we don't want to move forward, but it's simply because we're holding on to something God's trying to take from us. So God's trying to take a relationship away and you're holding on to it, and God's trying to take a thought pattern away, but you're holding on to it, and God's trying to take that thing from you, but you're holding on to it, and maybe, just maybe, the reason you're not moving forward is because you're stuck holding on to something that's keeping you bound. Maybe today you're holding on to the anchor wondering why you're not moving. And Gideon just goes, you know, bye-bye, you know. Some of you really got to do that. Let's just do that right now. Just everybody say, bye-bye, boo, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye to those things and bye-bye to those people and that money, you know. Do with what you got. Work with what you got. And so he sends them home 300, or all the men. He's got 300 now, and they're camping near Midian. Now it says this, actually, look again at verse 7. He says this, with the 300 men who lapped, I will save you and give Midian into your hands, and let all the others go. Last week he said, go with the strength that you got. This week he says, go with the 300 you have. Somebody say, I got. No, let's try that again. I know it's a small group tonight, but you got to make up for some volume, okay? Somebody say, I got what I need. I got 300. That's perfect. I only got so much money. That's perfect. I only got so many people backing me up. That's perfect. Because you see, so many of us are waiting for more before we move forward, but what if you just need to go with what you got? Somebody say, go with what you got. I got what I need. I got the people that I need. I got the finances that I need. I got the friends that I need. I got everything that I need because also I got the Lord. So I don't need nothing else. Take from me what you want. I don't need 2,000, 22,000, 26,000 men. If I got the Lord, 300's plenty. But that's me talking right now. I probably wouldn't be like, I wouldn't be saying that. I'd be freaking out just as much as Gideon is. And so Gideon, shaking in his boots with the 300 men, doesn't know what to do. Look at what it says, continuing on in verse 9. The same night the Lord said to him, arise and go down to the camp, for I have given it into your hand. Some victories aren't needing to fight over. Some victories you just need to go take. I've already given it into your hands. Some things you don't need to actually fight for. You just need to go for because they're already given to you by the Lord. And so he just says, go down and get it. Go down. I've already given it to you. But if you are afraid to go down, go down. That stuck out to me. I don't know why that's funny to me, but it's like, if you're scared to go down, then go down. Go down to the camp of Purah with your servant. To the camp with Purah your servant. Verse 11, and you shall hear what they say, and afterward your hands shall be strengthened to go against the camp. Then he went down with Purah his servant to the outposts with the armed men who were in the camp. Verse 12, and the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the people of the east lay along the valley like locusts in abundance, and their camels were without number, and the sand, or as the sands of the seashore, in abundance. When Gideon came, behold, a man was telling a dream. So bro's probably, I don't know, like hiding in a bush or something like that, like listening to these people talk. And someone sharing a dream to his homie. And he says, behold, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian and came to the tent and struck it so that it fell and turned it upside down so that the tent lay flat. And his comrade, his homie, answered and said, this is no other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. God has given into his hand Midian and all the camp. So they're probably go down. Gideon and Purah, they're probably hiding in a bush or something like that. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but they're hiding somehow. Maybe it's dark. Maybe they're just got the ghillie suit on, and they're hanging out listening. And bro's like, dude, you will never guess. I took a nap earlier. Like it was crazy. Like it was crazy. Like we were out in the fields. There was this wheat thing going down, this barley bread, and it just came and tumbled over the tents. And then the tents lay flat, and yeah, it was crazy. And his friend's like, yo, that must be Gideon coming against us. See, if you have barley bread, it's usually for poor people. It's like not like eloquent, high ranking. I don't even know if that even makes sense. But like you're not gonna like wine and dine with just some bread. Like maybe some bread, some like garlic stuff in there, and some wine and some clams, and some oysters if you're like Tanya. That's like fine dining. But to just eat bread is for poor people. That's where the Israelites, they're poor people. But not only that, Midianites are ones who were nomads. They would travel, so they were always found in tents. So when the person hears it, they're like, oh, no, makes sense. The poor people come and they destroy the tents. That's Israel coming against us. And yeah, God's given us into their hands. Yeah, we're definitely going to lose. And Gideon hears this. Now look at this. Gideon hears this. And as soon as Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, he worshipped and returned to the camp of Israel and said, arise, for the Lord has given the host of Midian into your hand. I love it. This whole time, God has come to Gideon, actually, through this period, Judges chapter 6 all the way to Judges chapter 7, God comes to him 5 times. This is the 5th one. Every single time, he still leaves scared. He still leaves fearful. But it's after the 5th one that he has faith. See, I came to tell you, God has more grace for you than often you do for you. And sometimes you feel like I can't move, and you feel like, why would God choose me? I'm just a scared person. I mean, I've moved out, but then I failed, and I moved out and I failed. And you don't have any faith in you, but the Lord says, I'll be here. Don't you worry about that. And after 5 times, now finally Gideon walks in faith. And now it says he worships. He goes back to the camp and starts telling all the people, oh, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready. I know it's a small group, but turn to somebody, tell them, get ready, get ready. I don't know where you're at, but you're coming for a victory today. I don't know where you're at today, but I came to tell you, God's going to work something out in your life. Woo, I'm getting excited. And so he says to them, oh, the Lord's about to do something. Get ready. This is what it says in verse 16. And he divided the men, 300 of the men, into 3 companies, and put trumpets into their hands, to the hands of all of them, and empty jars with torches inside the jars. What the heck is going on? Verse 17, and he said to them, look at me and do likewise. When I come to the outskirts of the camp, do as I do. Verse 18, when I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, then blow the trumpets also on every side of the camp and shout for the Lord and Gideon. So this is I like this. God doesn't tell him what to do on how to get the victory. God just tells him you're going to receive the victory. He says, you're going to receive the victory. If you're scared, go down, hear the dream. He hears the dream, comes back full of faith. You would think he would go, okay, 300, get the swords. We about to win this thing. Let's go. But he says, this is not the Lord. He says, everybody, I want you to go grab the trumpets. Get the trumpets. So they get the trumpets, and then he's like, and I want you to do as I do. When I do this, I want you to do this. We're gonna come in, we're gonna go, and we're gonna throw the jars on the ground, and we're just gonna watch and see what happens. The reason I tell you this is because Gideon felt at a disadvantage in chapter 6 when he was in the cave. He felt at a disadvantage because of his family and because of who he was in his line. He feels at a disadvantage when God takes from him, and now he's got 300 against an army where it says like locusts or sand on the seashore. He felt like at a disadvantage in chapter 6. He felt like a disadvantage in chapter 7, but now he places himself at a disadvantage. He says, we're not even going to bring swords, we're going to bring trumpets. And we're not even going to bring axes, we're going to bring jars. What are you talking about, Gideon? I think finally he realizes the Lord has made me a promise. He made a promise to me in Judges chapter 6, and he made a promise to me that he said he's already given it to me. And he made a promise to me when he said, go down and listen to the dream. And I heard all these things. I understand now. I get the victory. So whether I bring swords or I bring trumpets, I'm going to win. I think he's got some like spiritual swag now. Like he was shaking before. Now he's like walking with like doing like the Conor McGregor or something like that. He's like, oh, I wish you would. I really wish you would come against me. I mean, come on, talk about me. Talk about him. Come at me. Like he doesn't even need swords because he knows the Lord's with him. Somebody, I got what I need. I got what I need. I might not have all the chariots, and I might not have all the swords. I might not have all the snipers and the tanks, but I do got a trumpet, and I do have the Lord. And so whether I have the Lord and a trumpet or I have the Lord and nothing, I still got what I need. And I'm going to win this thing because I know who's on my side. Come on, somebody. I know who's with me. I love it. He feels at a disadvantage, but God has actually placed him at an advantage. Why? Because nothing plus the Lord is still more than enough. Nothing plus the Lord still means victory. And now he's walking with some spiritual swag. And so Gideon and the hundreds of men who were with him came to the outskirts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch. They had just, when they had just set the watch, and they blew the trumpet, smashed the jars that were in their hands. Then the 3 companies blew the trumpets and broke the jars. They held in their left hand the torches, and in the right hand the trumpets to blow. And they cried out, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. By the way, I don't know if that's actually a good way of doing it. Like, I think that's Gideon's pride maybe a little bit. He's like, for the Lord! And for Gideon, like he wants a little bit of respect, put some respect on my name. Like, bro, you've been shaking. Get out of here, But for the Lord and Gideon. And so they do it, smash. Verse 21, every man stood in place around the camp, and on the army ran. They cried out and fled. When they blew the 300 trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his comrade and against all the army. And the army fled as far as, you got to be careful with this one, Beth Shittah. That's a scary one to read. Toward Zerah, as far as the border of Abel Mahorlah and Tabath. Fake it till you make it. Verse 23, and the men of Israel were called out from Naphtali and from Asher and from Manasseh, and they pursued after Midian. Gideon sent messengers throughout all the hill countries of Ephraim, saying, come down against the Midianites and capture the waters against them as far as Beth-barah and also Jordan. So all the men of Ephraim were called out. They captured the waters as far as Beth-barah and also to the Jordan. 25, and they captured the 2 princes of Midian, Oreb and Zebah. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and Zeb they killed with the winepress of Zeb. They pursued Midian. They brought the heads of Oreb, Zeb to Gideon across the Jordan. Seems kind of crazy, but that's what you do with sin, and that's what you do with enemies in your life. You have to cut it out at the root. And so they say, no more heads. Chop the heads off. Seems intense, but that's what we do with sin. The same, our enemies are not flesh and blood, but our enemies are principalities, powers of the air. And so when we have struggles, sin in our life, when we got things that are holding us back from what we're called to do, you know what you do with that? You chop the head off of it and you just keep moving forward. How do I do it? I don't know if I feel like I got the strength. How do I move to what God's called me to do? I feel like I don't got the power. How do I move forward to what God's called me to do? I don't know if I got what it takes. No, you do got what it takes because you have the Lord on your side. And so I got what I need. Somebody say, I got what I need.